Hello students, now we are going to learn a new chapter, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. You have learned in the previous class that all the plants are grouped into 5 divisions: Thelophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. Right? We also know that all the flowering plants are included in the division Angiosperms. So the chapter we are going to learn is about sexual reproduction in Angiosperms, that is flowering plants, isn't it? The important topics to be learned in this chapter are flower, a fascinating organ of Angiosperms; pre-fertilization, structures and events; double fertilization, post-fertilization, structures and events; apomixis and polyembryony. These are the topics which we are going to learn in this chapter. Now let me tell you about flowers and a few parts of pre-fertilization, structures and events in flowering plants. I have already mentioned about the sexual parts and the vegetative parts of a flowering plants. The flower is the reproductive part of an angiospermic plant or flowering plant. So a flower is a modified shoot specialized to carry out sexual reproduction of the plant. A flower is said to be complete flower when it has 4 holes. The holes are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. These are the different holes of a plant. If the calyx and the corolla are not differentiated, the hole is known as a perianth, and the parts of the florent parts of the hole is called tepal. Look here, these are the parts of a flower. Sepals, the hole is called calyx; petals, the hole is called corolla; stamen is the florent part of androecium, male reproductive structure. The whole of pistil is gynoecium. Names of holes and the florent parts of the flower. Look here: calyx, sepals, corolla, petals, androecium, stamens, gynoecium, carpel or pistil. Androecium is a male sex organ and the gynoecium is the female sex organ. Calyx and the corolla are protective parts of a flower. Now let us learn about the male reproductive structure of a flower, that is stamen. The whole is androecium, right? Stamen represents the male reproductive organ of angiosperm or flowering plant. It consists of 2 parts, anther and filament. This knob-like structure is called anther, and this part, stalk-like structure, is called filament. The filament is proximally attached to thalamus, petal or tepal. Now let us see the structure of microsporangium. You know, a microsporangium is generally surrounded by 4 wall layers. The epidermis, outer layer is called epidermis. Next is endothecium. Next is middle layers, and the last innermost wall of microsporangium is called septum. Right? So middle layers may be more than 2 layers. Endothecium is next to epidermis. Right? The outer 3 wall layers perform the function of protection and help in dehiscence of anther to release pollen grains. Septum, the innermost wall, nourishes the developing microspores or pollen grains. When the anther is young, a group of compactly arranged homogeneous cells called the sporogenous tissue occupy the center of its microspore enzyme. Each and every cell of sporogenous tissue can act as microspore mother cell, and microspore mother cell undergoes meiosis to form microspores. This process is called microsporogenesis. Suppose this is microspore mother cell. Microspore mother cell is diploid, you know. This microspore mother cell will undergo meiosis to form a cluster of 4 haploid microspores. This process is called microsporogenesis, right? So this cluster of 4 haploid microspores is called microspore tetrad, right? As the anther mature and dehydrate, the microspores dissociate from one another. From tetrad, from this tetrad, 4 microspores will be dissociated. This microspore will develop as pollen grains. This pollen grain will undergo mitotic division to form 2 cells. This is a mature pollen grain. 60% of the flowering plants are having 2 cell stage of the pollen grain. Remaining 40% of the flowering plants are having 3 cell stage of the pollen grain. Here, this is a 2 cell stage of the pollen grain. One is the vegetative cell. The large cell of the pollen grain is vegetative cell. The generative cell lies within the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. In 3 cell stage, the generative cell will divide into 2 male gametes. So in 3 cell stage of the pollen grains, there will be 2 male gametes and 1 vegetative cell. 40% of the flowering plants are having these 3 cell stage when they are shaded to the stigma. A pollen grain has 2 wall layers, outer wall and inner wall. Outer wall is called exine. Inner wall is called intine. Exine is made up of one of the most resistant substance in the world, that is sporopollenin. Because of presence of sporopollenin, pollen grains can be stored as fossil for a long time. Inner wall intine is made by cellulose and pectin, and the region of the pollen grain where sporopollenin is absent or thin is called germ pore. One of the germ pores will develop as pollen tip when pollen grains are shaded to the stigma. This is a pollen tip. The generative cell, the nucleus of the generative cell divides into 2 male gametes when the pollen tube enter to the stigma. These are male gametes, 2 male gametes, and the nucleus of the vegetative cell will be present here, which is known as tube nucleus here. Now let us know about pollen allergy. What is the allergy? A damaging immune response by body to substances like dust particles and pollen grains is called allergy. So the allergy caused by pollen grains is known as pollen allergy. The major contributor to pollen allergy is carrot grass, Parthenium, Cyanopodium, Amaranthus, sorghum, cynodon, etc. The pollen grains of such plants develop allergy and produce respiratory disorders like bronchitis, rhinitis, asthma, etc. As we know, pollen grains are having many advantages. Pollen grains are also can be used as some useful products like pollen food supplements. Due to richness in nutrients, pollen tablets are being made. Many types of pollen tablets and syrups are available as a food supplement in Western countries. Pollen grains possess unsaturated fats which protect the grains from ultraviolet rays. Therefore, the grains are used in creams, emulsions, and other cosmetics for providing smoothness and protection of skin. Pollen consumption has been claimed to increase the performance of athletes and racehorses. Now let's know about pollen viability. The period for which pollen grains remain functional is called pollen viability. It depends upon providing temperature, humidity, and genetic potentiality. Pollen grains can be stored in liquid nitrogen minus 196 degrees Celsius for years altogether and can be used as pollen banks like seed banks. Right? Pollen viability of some cereals such as rice and wheat has less than 30 minutes. Members of Rosaceae, Leguminaceae, and Solanaceae family, they maintain viability for months. Right? Okay, now, dear students, let's do this much only. Have a nice day.